Imagine you are being dragged into a stadium, not to watch, but to be watched. The gates open and the crowd is screaming, not for victory, but for your death. You hear the groans, you see the beasts, and you realize that you are the entertainment. The world calls it entertainment, but heaven calls it testimony. This is not exaggeration, but this is history. There was a time when following Jesus did not just make you different, it made you a spectacle. Hi, welcome to Present Part TV. On this channel we go beyond surface faith and explore what it means to truly stand for Christ. In ancient Rome, massive arenas like the Colosseums were built for one purpose, and that was entertainment through suffering. Not for justice, not for sport, but pain turned into spectacle. Tens of thousands of people gathered, not for football. They gathered not for music concerts, but to watch human beings die. Families gathered, crowd filled the seats, voices shouted, all waiting for one thing, and that is blood. Under rulers like Nero, Christians were arrested, not because they committed any crime, but because they refused to deny their faith. Christians were stripped of their dignity. Christians were beaten. Christians were mocked. They were even publicly humiliated, and they were displayed like objects. They were not treated like human beings. And then they were taken into arenas. They were thrown in with wild animals such as lions, bears, and other beasts, with no weapon, with nowhere to escape, with no one to even defend them, and absolutely no mercy. Then the gate would be opened, the animal would rush out, and the crowd would erupt in noise. Now think about that for a moment. Standing there and hearing the roar of a lion, knowing there is no way out to escape, and yet they still refuse to deny their faith. They refuse to deny Jesus. This is what makes it even heavier. It wasn't just criminals. Normally, places like arenas like the Colosseums were meant for criminals, people accused of serious offenses. But this was different. These people were not criminals. They were mothers, they were fathers, they were elderly people, even children, families standing together and facing death together. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. A mother holding the child she loves, a father standing beside his family, not knowing who will be taken first, yet choosing to stand together. And the crowd, they cheered, they laughed, they celebrated, they watched pain as if it was a performance. They didn't see people, they saw a show. They didn't hear cries, they heard entertainment. Human suffering became public entertainment. Pain became a spectacle. Death became a celebration. And in the middle of that chaos, in the middle of that noise, in that fear and in that violence, were believers who refused to deny Jesus. Not because it was easy, not because they felt no fear, but because their belief was stronger than their circumstance. The crowd saw a performance, but heaven saw a testimony. To the Roman world, that was just a show, just another spectacle, just another moment of entertainment. People came, they watched and went home. To them it meant nothing, but in the spirit something deeper was happening, something invisible but internal. Because every believer who stood in that arena made a bold statement, saying Jesus is worth more than my life. Not with loud speeches, not always with war, but with their stand. They could have escaped. All they needed to do was to deny Jesus with just one sentence. They would have lived, but instead they chose to stand. Even when it cost them everything, even when the outcome was certain, even when there was no way out, and heaven was not silent. While the crowd was shouting, heaven was witnessing. What the world ignored, God honored. What people mocked, heaven valued. What looked like defeat on earth was a victory internally. What looked like a loss was an internal gain. What looked like the end was actually a beginning, because they did not lose. They transitioned from pain to peace. They transitioned from suffering to glory. They transition from earth to eternity. They lost their life on earth, but they secured their place in eternity. And here is something powerful. Their death did not stop Christianity. Rather, it spread Christianity even more. What the enemy meant to destroy faith, God used it to multiply it. People watched them die, but they did not just see death. They saw something different. They saw something they could not explain. They saw their peace in the face of pain. They saw their boldness in the presence of danger. They saw their unshaking faith in the middle of death. They saw people who were not panicking. They saw people who were not begging. They were people who were not breaking down, but standing firm, and it shook them. Because this was not normal. This was not human strength. This was something deeper. This showed that the blood of the believers became a seal. Every job, every sacrifice became a testimony. The more they were killed, the more the faith grew. The more they tried to silence Christianity, the more they tried to silence the believers, the louder the message became. Because people began to ask, what kind of faith makes someone face death without fear? What kind of belief is so strong that it removes the fear of dying? What kind of truth is so real that people are willing to lose everything for it? And those questions became an invitation to discover the same truth. You can kill a believer, but you cannot kill the truth they stand for. Now let's bring this to today. Let's bring this to ourselves. You may never stand in an arena just like the early Christians. You may never face lions, but you will face something else. You will face public pressure. You will face public opinion. You will face public shame. Moment where standing for Jesus makes you look different. Moment where speaking truth makes you look extreme. Moment where living holy makes you look outdated. And the crowd may not throw you stones, but they will mock you. They will reject you. They will silence you. They will even label you. So the question is no longer will you face lion, but something even deeper. The question becomes, would your faith survive public shame? Because listen carefully, many believers today are not afraid of death, but they are afraid of embarrassment. They are afraid to speak about Jesus publicly. They are afraid to stand alone. They are afraid to be misunderstood. But those early believers in the arena, they chose shame over denial. They chose pain over comfort. They chose death over disloyalty. The crowd watched them as entertainment, but heaven recorded them as witnesses. The world called it entertainment, but heaven called it a testimony. So today, ask yourself, can I stand for Jesus when it's not popular? Can I speak truth when it costs me my reputation? Can I remain faithful when people are watching? Because one day your faith will not be tested in secret. It will be tested in public. And in that moment, will you perform for the crowd or stand for your King? If this teaching has blessed you, please like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe for more faith building message. God bless you.